was 21 years old, the night I learned there are things in this world that do not care whether you believe in them. For most of my life, I never told anyone the full story. I told small pieces when I had to. A bad drive, a strange light, car trouble on a lonely road. That was the version people could handle. That was the version that did not make them stare at me like I had cracked somewhere behind the eyes. But the truth is much worse than a strange light, and after all these years, I am tired of pretending I do not remember what happened. I remember everything. I remember the phone call. I remember my mother screaming my name before she could even form a sentence. I remember standing barefoot in my little apartment with the receiver pressed to my ear, hearing words that did not seem real. Accident. Hospital. Denise. Hurry. Denise was my older sister. She was 26, 5 years older than me, and she had always been the brave one. When our father left, she grew up overnight. She made sure I ate. She walked me to school. She fought my battles before I even knew I was in one. If I got scared during a storm, I crawled into her bed. If I got in trouble, she covered for me. She was not just my sister. She was the closest thing I had to a second mother. So when my mother said Denise had been hit by a drunk driver and was being rushed into emergency surgery, something inside me split open. I do not remember putting on shoes. I do not remember locking my door. I only remember grabbing my coat, my purse, and the keys to my old blue Plymouth, then running down the stairs so fast I almost fell. It was late October, sometime in the late 1980s, back when lonely roads still felt truly lonely and a payphone was the closest thing to help if your car died. The hospital was almost 3 hours away. The fastest route was a rural highway that cut through miles of open country before dipping into thick pine woods near the parish line. I hated that highway even before that night. During the day, it looked harmless enough. Fields, barns, telephone poles, long stretches of nothing. But at night, it turned into something else. No streetlights. No houses close to the road. No gas stations for miles. Just black trees, narrow pavement, and darkness so thick your headlights looked like they were being swallowed. I told myself to drive. Just drive. Do not think about Denise. Do not imagine the hospital room. Do not imagine my mother sitting there alone. Do not imagine a doctor walking out and saying there was nothing they could do. But of course, that was all I could imagine. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel with both palms. Every few minutes, I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and told myself to stop crying because tears made the road blur. I tried the radio, but every song sounded wrong. Love songs, commercials, cheerful voices talking about furniture sales and football scores. It made me angry that the world was still acting normal while my sister might be dying. I snapped the radio off. For the first hour, nothing strange happened. That is important. I was scared, but I was not imagining things. I was alert. I knew exactly where I was. I passed Miller's feed store, dark and closed. I passed the little white church with the leaning steeple. I crossed the narrow bridge over Cane Creek and watched my headlights flash across the black water below. Then the road emptied. I had not seen another car in at least 15 minutes. The highway stretched ahead of me in 2 pale lanes, slick with mist, disappearing between walls of pine trees. My headlights caught the reflectors on the roadside one after another, little red eyes blinking out of the dark. That was when the radio came on by itself. Not loud, not with music, just a soft burst of static. I looked down at it. The knob was still turned off. I remember that clearly because I reached for it, thinking maybe I had not clicked it all the way. Before my fingers touched the dial, the static sharpened into a thin, high whine that made my teeth ache. Then I heard my sister's voice. Rachel. I jerked the wheel. The car swerved toward the shoulder, tires growling over loose gravel, and I yanked it back into the lane with both hands. My heart slammed so hard against my ribs that, for a second, I could not breathe. Rachel, the voice said again. It was Denise. Not a voice that sounded like Denise. Not some radio preacher, operator, or woman on a late-night call-in show. It was my sister. Weak, breathless, close. I stared at the radio like it was alive. Denise? I whispered. Static hissed through the speakers. Then her voice came back, clearer this time. Do not stop. Every hair on my body stood up. I pressed the gas without thinking. The car surged forward, engine whining, headlights bouncing over the uneven road. I looked into the rearview mirror. Nothing was behind me. Nothing but black pavement and the red glow of my own taillights. Denise? I said louder. Can you hear me? The radio crackled. Do not stop, Rachel. My mouth went dry. Denise was in surgery. Or unconscious. Or dying. She could not be on my radio. She could not know where I was. She could not be speaking through a car with the radio turned off. I reached for the dial again. The moment my fingers touched it, every light on my dashboard flickered. The speedometer needle jumped. The heater blasted cold air against my legs. The radio screamed with static so loud I cried out and covered one ear. Then, beneath all that noise, another sound came through. A low hum. Deep. Steady. Mechanical, but not like an engine. It sounded enormous. It sounded far away and directly above me at the same time. Then Denise whispered, "They are already here." I looked up through the windshield. At first, I saw nothing but darkness. Then the clouds lit from behind. Not lightning. Lightning flashes and disappears. This glow spread slowly, silently, like something huge had opened its eyes above the trees. A pale blue-white light bled across the underside of the clouds, turning them silver from within. My foot eased off the gas. Then I remembered my sister's voice. Do not stop. I pressed harder. The Plymouth shook as it picked up speed. 45. 50. 55. The old engine rattled like it was angry at me, but I kept going. The road curved left, and as I came around the bend, I saw the first light. It hung low over the highway, a perfect white sphere, brighter than a spotlight, suspended above the road about half a mile ahead. It did not blink. It did not sway. It did not move like an aircraft. It simply waited. I hit the brakes so hard my purse flew off the passenger seat. The car skidded, tires shrieking, and stopped crooked in the lane. For 1 second, all I could hear was my breathing. Then a second light appeared beside the first. Then a third. They formed a triangle over the highway, 3 impossible stars hanging too low in the sky. Between them was a shape I could barely see, a deeper black against the night, blocking out the clouds behind it. The thing was huge. Wider than the highway. Wider than the trees. Maybe wider than anything I had ever seen in the air. The radio whispered, "Rachel, go." I could not move. The lights began drifting toward me. That broke whatever fear had frozen my body. I slammed the car into reverse. The transmission clunked hard, and the car lurched backward. I twisted around in my seat, looking through the rear window as the Plymouth flew in reverse down the empty highway. Then red lights appeared behind me. For one wild second, I thought it was the police. I almost cried from relief. But they were not police lights. They were 2 red points floating above the road behind me, low and narrow like eyes. I screamed, shoved the gear shift into drive, and floored it. The car shot forward toward the 3 white lights. I had nowhere else to go. The highway dropped slightly, and the car picked up speed. The white triangle hovered ahead. The red lights followed behind. My radio blasted static. Denise's voice cut in and out through the noise. "Do not let them take you off the road." "What does that mean?" I screamed. "Denise, what does that mean?" The answer came in a voice that was not my sister's. "Exit right." The words were calm. Male. Too smooth. Like someone reading from a script. I saw it then. A dirt turnoff on the right, almost hidden between the trees. My headlights swept across it as I approached. It looked like a logging road, narrow and muddy, vanishing into the woods. The male voice repeated, "Exit right." Denise screamed through the radio, "No." I jerked the wheel left just as something slammed into the side of my car. The impact threw me against the driver's door. The Plymouth fishtailed across both lanes. I fought the wheel, tires screaming, and somehow straightened out before the car hit the ditch. My shoulder burned. My head had struck the window hard enough to make stars burst in my vision. I looked into the side mirror. There was nothing beside me. Nothing I could see. But something had hit me. The passenger door was dented inward, the metal creased as if an enormous hand had pressed into it. The 3 white lights rose suddenly into the sky. For 1 second, the road ahead was clear. Then every tree on both sides of the highway bent away from the road at once. Not from wind. There was no storm, no rain, no thunder. The trees bent outward as if something massive was pushing down from above. Pine needles whipped through the air. Dust and dead leaves spiraled into my headlights. The car began to tremble. A beam of light dropped onto the highway behind me. It struck the pavement where my car had been seconds earlier. The asphalt glowed white. The painted yellow lines shimmered like they were melting. I smelled something sharp and electrical, like hot wires and rain on metal. I drove faster than I had ever driven in my life. 60, 70. The steering wheel shook in my hands. The engine screamed. The radio switched rapidly between stations, voices bursting through for half a second at a time. A baseball game. A woman laughing. A preacher shouting about judgment. A child crying. Then Denise again. "Bridge," she gasped. "Rachel, the bridge." I knew the bridge she meant. There was an old iron bridge about 5 miles ahead, narrow, rusted, with no shoulder and a sharp drop into a creek below. I hated driving over it even in daylight. Something struck the roof. The whole car dropped as if a giant fist had pushed it toward the road. I screamed and ducked, but there was nowhere to go. The roof buckled with a deep metallic pop. The windshield spiderwebbed from the top corner. Cold air rushed in through a crack. Then I saw the bridge sign. 1-lane bridge, 500 feet. The white lights swept over me from above, and suddenly the car became weightless. Not lifted completely. Not yet, but lighter. The tires lost their grip. The steering went loose in my hands. My stomach rose into my throat. The loose coins in the ashtray floated for half a second, spinning silver in the dashboard light. "No," I sobbed. "No, no, no." Denise's voice came through the radio, faint but firm. "Hold the wheel." The car slammed back onto the road. The impact blew out my left front tire. The Plymouth veered violently toward the railing as I hit the bridge. Metal screamed beneath me. Sparks shot from the rim. The steering wheel fought like a living thing. I could see the black creek below through gaps in the iron beams. The car bounced off the right railing, then the left, scraping both sides as I tried to keep it straight. Behind me, the bridge lit up white. Something was following me across. Not on the road. Above it. The hum became unbearable. It filled my skull. My vision blurred. My nose started bleeding. I tasted metal. I thought of Denise on an operating table. I thought of my mother waiting in a hospital hallway. I thought, with sudden terrible certainty, that I was never going to reach them. Then headlights appeared at the far end of the bridge. A truck. A real truck. An 18-wheeler coming toward me, horn blaring, its headlights huge and yellow and blessedly human. I screamed and yanked the wheel as far right as I could. There was no room. The bridge was too narrow. The truck hit its brakes, tires smoking, trailers swaying behind it. My car scraped the railing so hard the passenger mirror ripped off and vanished into the dark. For one impossible second, the truck and my Plymouth squeezed past each other with inches between us. The driver's face flashed by my window. I saw his eyes. He was looking up. Not at me. Up. His mouth was open in terror. Then I cleared the bridge. The truck did not. In my rearview mirror, I saw the white beam drop over the 18-wheeler. Its headlights flared. The trailer lifted slightly, just slightly, like a toy being pulled by an invisible string. Then the beam vanished, and the truck slammed back down, jackknifing across the bridge with a sound like the world tearing in half. I should have stopped. I know that. For years, I hated myself because I did not stop. But I was not brave. I was 21, bleeding, crying, driving on a blown tire, and something in the sky was hunting me. So I kept going. The road after the bridge curved into the deepest stretch of woods. My car was almost impossible to control. The rims sparked against the pavement. The steering wheel shook so violently my fingers went numb. Smoke poured from somewhere under the hood. Every warning light on the dashboard blinked on and off like a heartbeat. Then the radio went silent. No static. No hum. No Denise. That silence was worse than the noise. I whispered, "Denise." Nothing. The headlights flickered. For a moment, I saw something standing in the road ahead. Tall. Thin. Pale. I screamed and swerved. The car missed it by inches, or I think it did. As I passed, something slapped the rear window hard enough to crack it. I looked in the mirror and saw a long hand sliding down the glass, fingers dragging through the dust. Then the road changed. That is the only way I can describe it. 1 second, I was on the highway. The next, I was on a road I did not recognize. The pavement became darker, older, split with weeds down the center. The trees leaned over it so tightly that their branches formed a tunnel. There were no road signs, no reflectors, no power lines, nothing. The temperature inside the car dropped so fast my breath fogged the windshield. I hit the brakes. The car skidded to a stop. The engine died. This time, I did not try to restart it. I sat there in the dark, hands glued to the wheel, listening. Something moved in the trees. Then something moved on the other side. Slow footsteps in dead leaves. One set, then another, then several. My headlights glowed weakly, aimed at the empty road ahead. Shapes passed between the trees, pale and quick. Too tall, too narrow. Their movement was wrong, almost like they were remembering how bodies worked. The passenger door handle lifted. I watched it rise slowly, then drop, then rise again. I locked it with my shaking hand. Every lock in the car popped up at once. I slapped them down. They popped up again. The radio clicked on. My sister whispered, "Do not look at their faces." The windshield filled with pale shapes. I screamed and threw myself backward against the seat. They were all around the car now, pressing close but not fully visible. Heads too large, necks too thin, fingers sliding over the glass. One leaned toward the windshield, and I saw only the lower part of its face before I squeezed my eyes shut. Smooth skin, a narrow mouth, no expression. Something tapped the driver's window. 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Then my sister's voice changed. It was still Denise, but it sounded far away now, like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. "Rachel, listen to me. When the light comes back, drive straight." "The car is dead," I cried. "It won't be. I can't do this." "You have to." The hum returned above me. The pale shapes backed away from the car all at once. A white light bloomed ahead at the end of the road. Not from above this time. Ahead. A circle of light opened in the darkness like a doorway. Inside it, I could see the highway. My highway. The real one. The dashboard lights snapped on. The engine roared to life. I did not think. I slammed the car into drive and floored it. The Plymouth screamed down that impossible road on one good tire and one bare rim. The trees whipped past. The pale shapes ran alongside the car, fast and silent, their long arms reaching through the dark. One struck the rear quarter panel. Another landed on the hood, its thin fingers gripping the cracked metal. I saw its face. Only for a second. That was enough. I will not describe all of it. I will only say this: it was not empty. That would have been easier. There was intelligence in those black eyes. Cold intelligence. Curious intelligence. Like I was not a person. Like I was a thing that had escaped its container. I hit the brakes, then the gas. The creature slid off the hood and vanished under the car with a thud. The Plymouth bounced over it. I screamed until my throat tore. The circle of light rushed toward me. Behind me, the impossible road folded into darkness. I burst through the light and came back onto the real highway sideways, tires smoking, rim throwing sparks across the pavement. A horn blared. I barely missed a station wagon coming the other direction. The driver swerved onto the shoulder and disappeared behind me. Streetlights appeared ahead. Streetlights. I started sobbing. There were houses now. A gas station. A closed diner. The world had returned all at once, ordinary and yellow-lit and sleeping. I was near the town where the hospital was. Somehow, impossibly, I was less than 10 minutes away. Then I saw the clock. 3:16 a.m. I had left my apartment a little after 10. Even with the distance, I should have arrived around 1 in the morning. Nearly 5 hours had passed. Almost 2 hours were missing. I pulled into the hospital parking lot with smoke rising from the hood and sparks still spitting from the ruined wheel. A security guard ran toward me before I even opened the door. I tried to stand, but my legs buckled. He caught me before I hit the pavement. "What happened to you?" he asked. I looked back at the car. The roof was dented inward. The passenger side looked crushed. The rear window was cracked in the shape of a long hand. Pine needles were jammed into the grille. The front tire was shredded down to the rim. And across the hood, burned into the blue paint, were 5 long marks like fingers had dragged through heated metal. I told him my sister was in the hospital. That was all I could say. My mother found me in the emergency waiting room 10 minutes later. She cried when she saw the blood on my face. I tried to ask about Denise, but the words came out wrong. My mother grabbed my shoulders and told me Denise had made it through surgery. She was alive. Critical, but alive. Then she said something that made the room tilt. She woke up for a minute, my mother said. Right around 3. She kept asking where you were. I could barely breathe. What did she say? My mother looked confused. She said you were on the wrong road. I did not tell her. Not then. I could not. There were doctors, nurses, a police officer asking about my car, and people moving everywhere. The whole hospital smelled like antiseptic and coffee. Everything was too bright, too real. If I said what had happened out loud, I knew it would follow me into that building. So I lied. I said I had blown a tire. I said I lost control. I said I must have hit the bridge railing. The police officer looked at the car and did not believe me. I could see it on his face. But what else could he write down? UFO? Creatures? Missing time? A dead radio speaking in my sister's voice? He wrote single vehicle accident. Denise woke up fully 2 days later. I waited until we were alone. She looked small in that hospital bed, her face bruised, one arm in a sling, tubes running from her hand. I sat beside her and held her fingers like they were made of glass. Before I could say anything, she whispered, "You heard me, didn't you?" I stopped breathing. Her eyes filled with tears. "I was there," she said. I told her she could not have been. She was in surgery. She had nearly died. "I know where my body was," she said. "But I was on that road with you." Then she told me what she remembered. She remembered darkness. She remembered floating above her own hospital bed, looking down at doctors working over her. She remembered a sound like a swarm of power lines. Then she saw the highway. She saw my car. She saw the lights above it. She said something had opened over the road. something like a hole in the night, and there were figures moving inside it. She said they were not after me at first. They were after her. I did not understand. Denise turned her head toward the window. When the accident happened, I saw them above the road before the other car hit me. 3 lights. White. In a triangle. The drunk driver swerved because he saw them too. I felt cold all over. No, I said. She nodded weakly. They followed me to the hospital, she whispered. Then they found you because you were coming to me. I wanted to tell her she was confused. Medication. Trauma. Dreams. But she knew about the bridge. She knew about the wrong road. She knew about the hand on the glass. She knew things I had not told anyone. Then she squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Rachel, she whispered, one of them got in the car with you. I shook my head. No, you didn't see it because you wouldn't look. No, it was in the back seat. I turned slowly and looked toward the hospital room door as if something might be standing there listening. Denise began to cry. It leaned forward, she said, and it said your name. That was the moment I decided never to tell anyone. For years, I kept that promise to myself. Denise and I barely talked about it. My mother never knew the whole truth. The car was hauled away and scrapped, though not before 3 different mechanics refused to touch it. One said the electrical system looked burned from the inside. Another said there were magnetic readings on the roof that made no sense. The third told my uncle, quietly, that the damage on the passenger door did not look like any impact he had ever seen. The truck driver from the bridge made the local paper. Not the part about the light, of course. The article said he lost control on the bridge and jackknifed it. He survived with a broken wrist and a concussion. Years later, I found out he quit trucking within a month. He moved 2 states away and refused to drive at night again. I wish I could say the story ended there. It did not. 3 weeks after Denise came home from the hospital, she called me crying. She said there were burn marks on her bedroom window, 5 long streaks down the outside of the glass. Her room was on the 2nd floor. A month after that, I woke up at 3:16 a.m. to the sound of static coming from my living room. I lived alone. I did not own a radio anymore. I walked out with a kitchen knife in one hand and found my television on, screen full of snow, volume turned all the way up. Then a voice came through. Not Denise. Mine. My own voice, whispering from the static. Do not stop. I unplugged the television and threw it away the next morning. Years passed. Life moved on because life is cruel that way. Denise recovered, though she was never quite the same. She became nervous around windows at night. She hated hospitals. She would not drive under open sky after dark unless someone else was in the car. I got married, had children, and learned how to look normal. I laughed at birthday parties. I went to work. I cooked dinner. I did laundry. I did all the ordinary things people do when they are carrying something impossible inside them. But every October, around the same week, the dreams came back. The highway, the bridge, the wrong road, the pale hand sliding down the glass, and always, at the end, that circle of light opening in the trees. Denise passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. Not sudden, not mysterious, just cruel. Before she died, I sat beside her bed the way she had once sat beside mine when I was little and afraid of storms. The night before she passed, she opened her eyes and looked toward the window. I knew that look. Do you hear it? She asked. I did not want to answer. The room was quiet. No machines except the soft hiss of oxygen. No television. No radio. Nothing. Then, from somewhere far above the house, I heard it. The hum. Low. Steady. Waiting. Denise smiled, but there was no peace in it. They're not here for me this time, she whispered. My blood went cold. The lights in the room flickered. Once. Twice. Then the baby monitor on the dresser, The one we used so my daughter could hear if Denise needed help, crackled with static. A voice came through. My voice. Younger. Terrified. Screaming from somewhere impossible. Rachel, go. The window filled with white light. I grabbed Denise's hand and started praying louder than I had ever prayed in my life. I do not remember all the words. I only remember saying the name of Jesus again and again because it was the only name I trusted in that room. The light vanished. The hum stopped. Denise exhaled once, soft and tired, and then she was gone. I have never told my children that part. I am telling it now because I am old and because 2 nights ago, something happened that made me realize silence has never protected me. I was sitting in my kitchen after midnight, unable to sleep. Rain tapped against the windows. The house was dark except for the small lamp above the stove. I was drinking tea and looking through old photographs when I found one of Denise and me from the summer before the accident. We were standing beside my blue Plymouth, laughing at something I cannot remember. I almost smiled. Then I noticed the background. Behind us, high in the daylight sky, were 3 white dots arranged in a perfect triangle. I dropped the photograph. At that exact moment, my phone rang. No caller ID. I knew better than to answer. I answered anyway. For several seconds, there was only static. Then a young woman's voice whispered, shaking and breathless. Rachel, it was me. Not my voice now. My voice at 21. The same voice from that night. Then she said, I'm on the highway. I'm trying to get to Denise. There are lights in the sky. I could not move. I could not speak. Across the kitchen, the digital clock on the stove blinked once and changed to 3:16. The voice on the phone began to cry. Please, she whispered. Tell me what to do. Outside my kitchen window, the rain stopped. The whole world went silent. Then the trees beyond my yard lit up white. I hung up the phone. That was 2 nights ago. Since then, I have not slept. I keep all the lights on. I keep my curtains closed. I keep telling myself it was a prank, a glitch, a dream, anything but what I know it was. But tonight, just before I started writing this, I heard a radio turn on in the next room. The problem is, I do not own a radio. Static filled the house. Then my sister's voice came through, soft and clear, exactly as she sounded when we were young. Rachel, she said, do not stop. And now, through the crack in my curtains, I can see them again, 3 lights hovering over the trees.